Hi, I'm Liz Barnett-Simmons, fitness and food coach, and today I'm going to take you through using one of my favorite tools for both warming up and recovering, a foam roller. Mine is from Trigger Point Therapy, and I love these different kind of surfaces and ridges. It really helps you get into the nooks and crannies. We're going to focus on calves, quads, glutes, and upper back, which I think are the four most important areas to foam roll every day. Let's start with our calves. So bilaterally, both legs on the roller, you're going to roll forward and back. Notice I'm using the strength of my upper body to lift myself up here. You can switch to one leg, and notice here I'm turning my leg in, internally rotating, and then back to center, to neutral, and then externally rotating out to the side. So you want to make sure whatever area you're rolling, you're kind of getting over all the surface area of the tissue, of the muscle. I let my hips come back down, and I'm crossing my other leg on top for a little extra tension, pressing down, and notice I'm circling my ankle here in one direction and then the other direction. So that's another strategy, right? Moving the joints near the muscle where you're trying to target. And then I rub back and forth. So that is cross friction, so working against the grain of the muscle. Make sure you switch sides. And I'm taking you through a really quick series here. I think spending a little extra time in each area is a great idea, but at the very least, this will kind of get you ready to go or feeling like you're recovering. Again, circling the ankle in one direction and the other. You might notice as you go from one leg to the other, feels different, right? Spend a little extra time on that side where you feel like you need more attention. Making sure you're breathing the entire time throughout, and then just slide that roller up to your glutes. So your glutes are going to be probably the biggest surface area we're focusing on, except maybe your back, and there's probably a lot of tissue there, so feel free to kind of explore different positions. I have my ankle across my knee. If that doesn't work for you, you can extend that bottom leg. As long as you're really avoiding joints here, especially around your lower back, you should be good to go. My top leg is crossed over my other thigh, and see my foot is flexed there. That's going to help protect the knee. Now I'm moving on to the outer hip. There's a bunch of stuff that kind of meets there, your hip flexor, your TFL, right? The muscles of your glutes, obviously. So you just really want to get all up in there. I take what's called the G.I. Jane or G.I. Joe position here, and I'm kind of rolling back and forth to get onto that hip flexor right where it crosses over your hip. Okay, and then just to make things easy, I'm going to stick with the same side and work on my quad. So I'm in sort of a forearm plank position, and I'm rolling up and down the length of my leg, again, avoiding the joint. So avoid your kneecap for sure. And here's where I'll show you a couple different techniques. So I'm just kind of rolling up and down, and I'm taking sort of a 2 inches down, 1 inch back up approach. Here I'm adding some flexion and extension at the knee joint. Remember, you can move the joints around the area you're focusing on. When I bend my knee, I'm engaging my hamstring, so that should help lengthen the quad. And again, I'm kind of passing over the same area, 2 inches down, 1 inch up, more or less, right? Adding, bending, and extending here. And you can adjust your weight sort of into your arms, into your other leg as much as you need to. And then there's that cross friction, so I'm kind of going side to side. Making sure you're breathing the whole time. And then I'm going to switch over to the other side just to make things easy. I'll stay in that sort of G.I. Jane, G.I. Joe position, working across the front of the hip and then up and down the quad. Now, with foam rolling, I think sometimes people think it should be painful, otherwise it doesn't work, and that's not the case. You're not actually necessarily trying to go for the most painful, tender areas, the trigger points as you might know them. You can get a lot of benefit from working around the area. It's going to help bring circulation, help move fluid, right? So that's really where a lot of the benefits come. It's not about kind of taking out the knots or getting out those knots. It's really about just getting your tissue to sort of rehydrate and be able to move. So by adding these different techniques like bending and extending my knee in this case, right? Moving the joints near the muscle you're working, maybe adding some of that cross friction, just even adjusting sort of your angle, right? Turning a little bit in, turning a little bit out. You'll find that you can sort of target the muscle a little bit differently. I always get really tired doing this one because I'm basically in a forearm plank. So I've had enough there. I'm going to come up and do that side glute, right? Just to make myself even. As far as format, I think it's helpful to kind of go in order from your calves up. That also helps with circulation, right? We want to kind of reverse blood flow from your feet back up to your heart. So that's one way to do it. Again, trying to just target the different sort of angles at the hip. There should be a lot of muscle back there. If you do go over a tissue that feels like a little extra tight, that's okay. But maybe you don't want to kind of sit on it so much. Here we're targeting that lateral hip and then the front of the hip. And notice I'm kind of rotating in and rotating out. All right, so this is probably my favorite part, your upper back. If you wore a sports bra, you want to think about starting at the bottom of the sports bra strap. I have my hands behind my head, my hips are up, and I'm kind of rolling up and down there. So that's just really nice to kind of get at all the kinks. You might even hear or feel a little self-adjustment there in the spine. Avoid your lower back, avoid your neck. And you can play around, turn to one side. You can target that lat a little bit more, right? Use the leverage of your legs. Use your breath. Switching sides. You can kind of adjust your feet as much as you need to. This can be really tender here, especially if you're not sure. So just be careful with what you're, how much pressure you're putting on there. And then finding extension in the spine there. So leaning back, this one's great if you're spending a lot of time at your desk. And this is where I like to end with a few deep breaths.